wanna chase. You're the one I wanna hold. I don't want another minute to go to waste. And I want you in your beautiful soul.
Wow. We just got a new intro song. New theme music.
Welcome to the dark side of entrepreneurship.
Whoa.
It's been getting dark out here, y'all. I'm not even kidding.
Dork-sided.
It's been getting dork-sided. Welcome back to the Get Paid to Live podcast. My name is Iffy, and I'm joined with my fiance and co-host, Shaw. This is a space where we explore how to... Okay.
You want me to read it? I'm the new host of the Get Paid to Live podcast, and this is my co-host, Iffy. Welcome to the Get Paid to Live podcast. This is a space where we explore how to live first and get paid second. Whether you're an entrepreneur, you work for someone else, or you're just curious about creating your dream life, in these episodes you'll find inspiration, tips, and motivation on how you can navigate that process through our honest reflections as new entrepreneurs and candid interviews with ambitious, everyday dreamers like you and I, and like that squirrel over there.
What squirrel?
There's a squirrel running around outside.
Oh,
it's like a reflection.
No, I can see it.
Oh, that's good. Yeah, get a little video.
Oh, yeah.
And put it side by side.
I love that. Oh, yeah.
That's the squirrel. Oh, he's off. He's running.
Shit.
I love that action.
It's on the tree. I don't know if y'all could see that. Anywho, we have a lot to talk about. Today, guys. And it's like, we kind of write out these episodes in advance. Like we have planning sessions. So
like weeks, months in advance.
Yeah, weeks and months in advance. So sometimes we don't know exactly what we're talking about until the day of. And like today, even yesterday, I was just like, it's been a long week. I'm tired. My eye is twitching. Every time my eye is twitching, we know something needs rest. And we're stressed. Yeah. And I was like, I don't even feel like doing this episode today. I'm not even in the mood. But I was like, we have to because we booked out this space to do it today.
Oh, yeah. We're back in Remo.
This is
where we did episode 1, right?
Yeah. Yeah. And I feel like it's just we wanted to switch it up, change up the scenery because we're very I feel like portable podcast is like a part of the brand now.
We gotta use it.
Yeah, exactly. And so I was like, we have to. And I was like, okay, fine, whatever. Like we have to record and we have to go. Then I looked at the episode title this morning and it was like the dark side of entrepreneurship. And
you just got your punk rock paint on your face, makeup on, and you're like, yeah,
I got this today. It was like self-doubt, imposter syndrome, hopelessness. And I was like, bet. I can eat all of that. This is if this doesn't describe my week and my life right now, I don't know what does. And I was just like, perfect. I have the energy to bring to this because I have the dark-sided energy to bring today to our topic. Everyone's like, oh, it's not talked about enough, but who does want to just keep dwelling and talking?
And no one wants to listen to it.
And no one wants to listen to that. It's annoying.
It's not, right. People want to hear they want to follow the entrepreneur journey, but they also want good stuff. They want a good story, like a happy ending story.
Yeah.
And a lot of times, mid-flight, there's not a happy ending yet.
Yeah. We're mid-flight.
Yeah, when you're doing the ride along. So I feel like it's a combination of maybe not enough people talk about it, but also that stuff doesn't go viral because less people want to consume it.
Right. It's kind of depressing. You're trying to keep a good mood and you don't want to listen to all the reasons why you shouldn't do something. But I do think for the people who are mid-flight, who are kind of in that spot where you're past...
More like mid-fall, actually. Than
right. Sorry, I'm yelling. Not like mid-flight. It's like flight implies you're getting to the destination. And we're just in the spot right now where we just don't know. It's... Mm-hmm. I can say I have my vision. I know where I want to be. I can see it. I dream of it. I know everything about it. It's just... I don't know if what I'm doing will exactly get me there. And that's the part that you have to go through. I believe, I don't know. I've never made it out on the other side, but that's what I feel like you have to get through to get to the destination. Everybody I feel who has achieved their dream life or has achieved some aspect of success in their career and their life, whatever, they had to get to this point where like they don't know if it's going to actually turn out that way, but they keep going anyway.
Right.
And I think I feel like that's exactly where we are right now, because last year, and if you've seen our past episodes, you know, we like to say that we're in our freshman year of entrepreneurship.
Yeah,
and
year one.
And last year, the latter half of the year was our first semester, I think, and then this is like our second semester of freshman year, so we're a little bit more wise, but it's still rocky. Like things are still hard. And and
I think we're going to talk about this. Like the first semester was a lot of the excitement, the uninformed optimism, which we might talk about later. But I think now we're starting to come back down, or kind of that excitement is more and more,
it's more sober,
maybe more and more looks like despair from time to time. But yeah, I mean, it's still exciting. And, we were talking about this yesterday, which is like, you can't necessarily compare your current moment to your ideal. You need to compare the current moment to the realistic alternative, which is like, okay, the realistic alternative, if I wasn't doing this, is I would be working at my job. Yeah. And I would say
old corporate job.
My old job. And I would say this by far is better, even though there is uncertainty, even though there is confusion, even though I don't know if it's going to work out. I still feel like this is better. This is more aligned with
where I want to be.
Yeah, where I want to be, what I want to do with my life, with my values. And I think that's the right mindset to have.
When we were talking about, I think the example we were giving was like, if I died tomorrow doing
you
don't remember that? Okay.
No.
Well, I was saying like, if I died tomorrow with my current failures and struggles and I can't figure it out, I would still be proud of what I'm doing today. Versus if I was
you'd have more regrets.
Versus if I was at my corporate job and still I was safe, I was stable, I was successful, I was getting promoted according to society standards, but I still always had that what if, or I never really tried content creation, I never really tried starting a business. I don't think I would die feeling like I did everything I could. And I think right now, if I died tomorrow, I'd be like, hey, at least I was trying. At least even if I didn't succeed, I was doing something. I saw a different part of life. Like I tried, you know? And I think that's the better comparison to make, rather than the well, I'm not a successful content creator, or I'm not like I don't have 1 million followers, I don't have the money, I don't have the house or the whatever, I don't know, like the X, like I have the fact that I tried, and the fact that I am trying. And I think that, I mean, that's an accomplishment in and of itself, just showing up, honestly. So guys, let's get into it. The first thing we want to talk about is the phases. I feel like you get in this process. And by the way, just for a little bit of context, him and I both worked corporate at some point, and we left that to start our own businesses and really not come in with like this strict, rigid,
there was no clear plan.
Yeah, there's no clear plan on both sides. I quit in 2020 from corporate, went into freelance, no plan for that either. That kind of turned into something along the way. And then I left freelance, so I left my income, and it was like, okay, I think this is kind of a sign for me to start doing my own thing. And that's last year I was trying consulting for social media marketing, because I did that with freelancing. I was like, let me take it a step up with consulting. Didn't really feel aligned. And so now I'm kind of back to the drawing board, and like, okay, content has always kind of been there, but it's a slow grind. You never know if you're really going to make a lot of money from it. So I wanted to supplement it with a business that I created, which has started my brand, Sans Raison, which is more of like a motivational lifestyle brand that kind of helps people get to their dream, like through digital products, physical products. And that's been literally as of like 6 weeks ago. So very fresh, very new, but not necessarily new in the trying of things. And then for you.
Okay, so I left my data science job with no clear plan. Really, it was, let me just quit and make as much content as possible, because I had a little consulting thing. I had freelanced in the past while working full time, but this was more, okay, let me just make content, try to attract more clients, get more freelancing gigs or consulting gigs. And then I also had this community on the side called the Data Entrepreneurs, which it's not really, meant to generate revenue, but more of like an opportunity to connect with others in the space and all the good things that come with that.
Yeah.
So really no clear plan other than just make as much content as possible.
Yeah.
And it wasn't like I had a huge following. Like I had maybe 2,000 subscribers on YouTube at the time, maybe 1,500 followers on my blog or something.
Yeah. And now he's at 6K on Medium and then
like
13K on YouTube, right?
Yeah, something like that. Yeah. And one of the things is that monetizing content there are a lot of ways to do it. Mm-hmm. But I think this is one of the big themes with entrepreneurship. It's like, there are a million ways to make money, but finding the ways that align with your values and your goals and are more strategic, like long term.
Long game, not short term stuff that may not last.
And so that's ultimately the challenge, because of course there are a lot of ways to make money. Like if I really wanted to, like the easiest ways, I could go get another job, but that comes with the costs,
lack of freedom and time.
Or I could just spend all my time looking for freelancing gigs on Upwork, which is what I did in the past. Yeah. But then that also comes with a cost. Mm-hmm. Okay, well then I can kind of market myself as this data science consultant and spend all my time doing projects. But then that also comes with a cost. Like if I'm spending all my time doing that kind of work, I don't have any time for content. Mm-hmm. If I don't have time for content, that audience doesn't grow. Mm-hmm. And I feel like content, it builds equity as opposed to a freelancing gig. There's no equity there. It's like, you're getting short-term cash, but what's the long-term thing? Maybe you develop a relationship or a particular skill set, but the odds that translates to long-term value is less likely than like growing an audience, because an audience, there's a lot of value there because there are a lot of ways you can orient that. Mm-hmm. You can use that in a lot of different ways. The short version is basically was working as a data scientist 7 months ago, full-time at a company, and then I left with no clear plan, and now I'm just trying to figure out which direction is best. And the few things I've got going on is content creation, writing blogs, making YouTube videos, a small little consulting thing where I help clients with their data science and AI projects. And then I have a small community called the Data Entrepreneurs, which is just like a community for people like me, entrepreneurs doing data science or building stuff with AI.
Yeah. And you've been doing that all since last summer, I would say?
Well, content I've been doing for 3 years. Data Entrepreneurs I started last year, so January 2023. Mm-hmm. And consulting I've technically been doing since grad school, so about 2.5 years. Okay. Or freelancing, 2.5 years, consulting, depending on how you define it, more recently.
Yeah. And I think we both, last year is when we felt that like, oh my God, like this giddy thing, because we were removing this weight off of our back. For me, I was removing freelance, you were removing full-time job.
It's and just a huge time block.
Yeah, we were just like, wow, like we were exploring this new life. We get our whole day to ourselves. We get our routine the way we want. We had moved into a new place too, so that just like it felt like a fresh start. And I feel like things had that like exciting taste to it. Mm-hmm. And it still does, because I'm still happy with what we built last year to be able to live the life we do now, where we're kind of like working on the weekends, so we have fun with it, and like we're making content together, the podcast, like there's so many little things that emerge from this like new era that I still enjoy, but also now I feel like I'm assuming more risk the deeper I get in.
It's like you gain time and freedom and attention, but you give up like security and money. So it's just like a constant game of trade-offs.
100%.
Like all these different things have value, but like you make the trade essentially on what you decide to do.
And I think about this all the time, because I'm like, at what point am I going to stop if things get really scary? But here's the thing, like I feel like the deeper, and this is just my experience, I feel like the deeper, at least like we've gotten into this process, the more I'm like, double down. Like
what seemed obvious and like baseline was like eating out, like going out to sushi or eating out a few times a week, or like going out to get boba or Starbucks like multiple times a week. That just seemed very normal.
Like that's how you just live life and cope with
like
that.
You don't realize that these things,
you don't need them.
And so kind of more like now we rarely go
True.
out.
Yeah,
We rarely, even do like little snacks or drinks or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
And I feel like there's still probably things that we do that we don't realize
Can
are opportunities to
Right.
cut out and even live even more, what's the word?
It's just like frugal.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Even
I
more.
think that's a good point. The more you're forced to make something work, the more you're like, oh, I'm capable of this.
Yeah.
I feel like at that time, like me of last year versus me now, I feel like crazy difference. Like even in the terms like when I wake up, how much I work out, what books I'm reading, like how often I'm doing these things. Like I've never been this consistent with activities and hobbies and work. Like my schedule right now, like I practically work all day. Like everything I do, from the working out to what I eat to the time we take a walk, like everything is geared towards me being able to produce more content for my own content and for the business. And so before I'd be like, oh no, I can only edit this amount of times. I can only edit this amount of videos. Like now I'm editing 3 videos at a time, and that's just normal. It's becoming normal. And it's like things like that I didn't know I was capable of.
Yeah, for sure.
Because it wasn't necessary at the time, but now it is. And I think the more I see what I'm capable of and the more I see what I can do, I'm like, oh, the answer to every problem is to figure it out instead of like, oh, that's a constraint. Like the answer is to figure it out. And I think that that enables me to be like, okay, anytime we're running low on money, or we like, I don't know, something's not working in the business stuff, something's not working with the content, invest more into it, take more time into it. And I think that has now it's like there's no like reason to even go back, because like now it's like you have to keep going forward. You've already invested so much time into this,
it's just the constraints force you to innovate in good ways. So whether that's cutting something out, whether that's kind of 2xing or 3xing like your video, like what you can edit, it's like cutting out bad habits, all these things. When you kind of have to do it, like you're forced to do it, it's just easier to get better and better on this journey.
I want to bring up this chart that I'm sure a lot of people are familiar with. I think it's been called like the startup curve or the Dunning-Kruger effect, whatever you want to call it. But basically it just kind of depicts visually what most people, when they either like have an idea, when they want to start a business, when they're learning a skill, it's just a process you go through in doing that. And I think a lot of it, like generally, there's several different ones, but generally you start off with this kind of like, oh my God, like I have a new idea, this thing's gonna work out, like whatever. And then reality starts to set in like during that process. And I feel like we had moments of that last year, and we probably still are. Like it's complicated, but I feel like this scale is relative.
It happens on multiple scales simultaneously.
Yeah, exactly. But there was parts of last year where I'm like, okay, the enthusiasm was hitting, but then I'm like, okay, reality's starting to hit in, but I'm still pretty high. Like I'm not going to stop. And then I think now we're getting closer to that valley of despair. I don't even think we're there yet, which is kind of scary, but I think we're getting closer to that valley of despair where we're like, shit, this is where I feel like people go broke. Like they lose all their money. They're couch surfing. Nothing's working out. They're losing money or making no money at all. Like this is where I feel like the entrepreneur stories start to get dark. And I don't think everybody's looks the same. But I do think it's kind of like a rock bottom, if you will. But this rock bottom is like a rock bottom, but you are forced to still keep the vision in mind. It's forced to still keep the vision in mind. And I think that's the hard part. And I feel like we are kind of in that, like what another one is called like trough of sorrow. What makes it hard is the experimentation, because you're failing a lot in this period. Like things are not working. But it doesn't mean that your general process isn't working. It's just that this is the part where you have to pivot because there's something you're missing that is not getting you to where you want to be. And this is where you have to learn it. Like you have to learn these things or you're not going to get there. Like everything, like I say, is a means to an end. This is the rite of passage. Like you have to get through it. And this is where it gets tricky. This is where emotions start to come up and you can let it consume you. But we're going to talk a little bit later about like how we've kind of like how to cope, like the routines that we've built to cope. But like, this is where the vision matters more than
Right.
anything.
So what is this trough of sorrow or valley of despair? How does that look like for you?
Oh, for
recently?
me? Oh, for me, it's been a lot better because last year and plenty of times when I failed at content, when I failed at so many other things, it's been so long and extended and woe is me and pity party and all of these things. But these days it's kind of like intense bursts of emotion because I'm a pretty delusional person. Like I can stay in my like, yeah, I'm a full-time content creator. I don't even need to make the money. I don't need to have the evidence. I know it's here. Like I have the vision already. But there's days where I'm just like, when you think something is so special and magnificent, like I think my ideas or things for San are so good. I'm like, this is so good.
Yeah.
And then I'll have one day out of the week where I'm like, oh my God, I'm an idiot. Like none of this makes sense. Like it's ironic because my company is built off of like the message that you should do things that don't make sense actually. But I'm like, this is so stupid. Who am I to say this? I'm not qualified to be somebody's life coach, motivational speaker, make them guides, teacher, whatever you want to call it. And then I'm not even there yet. I've never even gotten to this like destination I'm preaching about. I feel kind of imposter syndrome when I'm, making videos. But this is what I believe, right? Like this is who I am. This is obviously something I want to do because it's been in my head for so many years. But I look at my subscriber count. I look at my the tumbleweeds in my emails.
Right.
And like I just look at like how nothing is happening necessarily, like physically. And I'm like, is this really that good or am I just really gassing it up? And like I don't believe these things, but then I also do at the same time. And I feel like most entrepreneurs have to like have feelings like this because you can be in momentum and moving and pushing things forward. Like I'm making Instagram posts, I'm making videos about this and I feel good about it. I'm writing, I'm making ebooks, but then there's like these moments where you're just like, I don't know if I know what I'm talking about. Like, I don't know if this is right because I've never done it before. And I think that's the kind of resistance with Dream Life is like, you've never done it before. So you don't know. You just have to keep going, not knowing, like, I don't know. I just feel a lot of like doubt, self-doubt, a lot of imposter syndrome and a lot of, I guess this is where like insecurities can fester. Like, and one of my biggest insecurities is like, how come I can't ever get to the level of content creation I want to? Like, how come I can't ever attract an audience? How come I can't ever do this? Like, maybe I'm not that person. Maybe it was never meant to happen for me. Like, this is where the victim mindset starts to come in and you start thinking like, oh, it's just me. My life is this way and this is why I don't get things. And it's easier, even though it doesn't feel like that's easy, it's easier to think that than to figure it out. Yeah.
Because figuring it out requires learning.
Yeah.
While complaining requires nothing. Like you don't have to do anything. Exactly. You just complain about it.
Yeah. What does it look like for you?
I feel
you're about to break down right now. Trying to start crying.
Honestly, I think if I were to sum it up, it's like, where's this even going?
Yeah.
What's the long-term like play here? Like, what is this? Okay, I have this content, but realistically, like how much can I make from content creation? And like it's kind of like what's the strategy? And like, of course, most content creators, like maybe 50% of their revenue comes from sponsorships, but like at this point I'm not getting like, people aren't reaching out that I necessarily align with, you know? Yeah. And I don't want to just do sponsorships just to make money because that like harms the brand. And like, because the moment you're doing something that's not aligned, it becomes work again. You know what I mean? It's like,
then there's no point in leaving your job.
Yeah, there's no point in doing this whole journey. Like,
so you
might
have
as well
to
go
do it. Sorry to interrupt. That's just like such a good point. It's like, that's the hard part. It's not like making money, I guess, or like it's not like growing an audience. It's like growing the right audience, making the right kind of money that feels aligned. Because when we left our jobs, it wasn't just like leaving our jobs. It was like,
it wasn't leaving our jobs to make more money. It was leaving our jobs
to create a whole new life. Yeah. To create
to do the things we want.
Exactly. Create a life that is aligned and intentional. And that's the hard part.
Yeah.
Because I mean, we get this all the time. Like, oh, you should try this. You should try this. You should try this. And it's like, we could totally do that. But like, and I've said this to Shine before, there's literally no point in blowing up our lives just to be surviving again.
Right.
Like, we need to be thriving, and that's the difficult part to design, because it's not just something like building a product that works, like building a product that blows you out of the park.
Right.
Like,
I mean, it works for your customer, but it also works for you. Like, that's the business you want to run.
Yeah.
Like, this is true in content creation, but it also applies to business. It's like, there's nothing worse than going viral for a post that you don't align with or you don't care about. It's like, let's just say, like, I make a post. It's like data scientist reacts to some, like, okay, so here's an idea.
Okay.
So there's that new OpenAI, like the video generation, text to video thing. Yeah. It could be like data scientist reacts to this thing, like this this new AI technology, and like let's say it blows up, and now people want that, but it's like, I don't care about just doing reaction videos.
Right, like I want people to learn. I want people to.
I want to learn. I don't want to just like react to things.
Yeah.
I want to learn and kind of share my learnings with people.
Right. And that could be a part of a bigger strategy, but I think trying to like just capitalize and bank off of that, and that's your only way to reach people, that's when it becomes misaligned. And
then I think a similar things in business is like you make like you start doing a service, like let's say Gen AI services or something like that, like consulting people on that. It could blow up. There could be a lot of demand for it, but it's like, is that something I want to do? And it just goes back to doing unaligned work. And really the whole point of it is to get paid to do the things that you want to do, get paid to live. Like, where is all this going? And
that's
I think
so hard to think about.
I think that's what it's all about. It's like finding the thing that provides other people value,
and
but
also yourself,
but also myself. Something that's like intrinsically rewarding, and finding that overlap in the Venn diagram.
That's really, it's really difficult. This is the thing, because we are doing a lot of aligned activities right now. I would say like literally 99% of our day is pretty aligned, minus distractions. And the thing is, we just don't know exactly how to monetize all those things in an aligned way. Like, we're doing a lot of aligned things, but putting it together in a way that makes us money and also brings us happiness, challenges us, maximizes all parts of us. Like, that's the kind of hard part where we feel like Valley of Despair vibes, because it's like, I know I'm doing a lot of cool things, I just don't know where it's all going. I don't know how it's going to fit into the bigger picture. How this can be
sustainable.
How can it be sustainable? Because our savings are running out. We're doing everything we love, but we don't know how to put it together yet in a way that makes us money and can sustain us continuously doing this over and over again.
Provides value to that other people. Provides value to other people and provides value to ourselves.
Us. And I think I feel that a lot, because I'm just like, I know I love these things, and I just believe that if I keep doing them and I keep putting my best energy, something will craft itself. And I know that can kind of sound like lazy and complacent in a way, but it's like, it's actually so much harder not to control the outcome. But I think anytime I've tried to control the outcome, it's always misaligned. It's always scarcity. It's always, it never feels right. But anytime I like let go and just take a chance, I just believe in myself, like things just naturally form in a way. Because when you let go, I think you let the world, you let people tell you what they need from you. And I feel like that's so much more of a win-win than trying to like shove a product down somebody's face, or like shove something just because it's working, or you see other people do it but you don't really care about it. So I think that's what I feel a lot too. And then another thing is like feeling really, because we're solopreneurs, we're doing everything ourselves, is like feeling really bad at everything. Like feeling like you kind of suck.
We suck at most things.
Most things right now we suck at. And to list a few, it's just like marketing is a huge part of our career. Sales, copywriting, designing, sometimes even tech stuff, like how to set things up, and operations, like how to get more efficient at what we're doing, or is there things that we could change or fix about our schedule, or like our performing at the routine and operation, like increasing our energy levels, maintaining relationships. Like it's becoming a lot, and it's forcing me to get it together. Like I've had moments where I'm just like, I don't know, like I don't know what to do, because like I have people around me, they need things, and then I'm trying to figure out why I'm so bad at my job, and then I'm also trying to like market myself, so I have to show up and be like, hey, I love everything, and it's just like so many things. And when everything's kind of like has a little fire, and you're in the middle, you're like, I can see that everything is on fire and I still have to keep going. And I think that feeling bad at everything can be very overwhelming.
Right.
Like you sit in how bad you are, but you have to accept it because there's nothing you can do right now other than just keep trying another day. And here's the thing, like we allow ourselves to be so bad at like a corporate job. Like even though I remember in my corporate job, I was like, oh, I'm so bad at this. Like I was still like that, but I was more patient because it's not my company. You know, I'm just like, yeah, I suck at this. I feel imposter syndrome. Like I feel like I'm never going to get good at this. But I just was like, you know what? It's Friday. I have to just.
You also had more cover because you had people
around me.
Yeah, you were in an organization. You were working on a team.
Yeah.
But I'll just say like what the valley of despair looks like for me, perhaps more recently, is, I really had this idea that, okay, I'll make content. That's kind of like the long-term thing. And it's a great way for me to learn. And I like to learn. So that's like the aligned work.
Yeah.
Then the idea was, okay, I can do consulting. That's a good way to learn. That's a good way to kind of explore the business landscape of AI. And it's a way to make money because that's kind of how I've done it in the past. Kind of doing it, I've seen like the realities, like all the,
oh my God,
you know what I mean?
This is such a good, yes.
Yeah. So I think that's part of the valley of despair because you kind of come in with certain expectations, but then you start seeing the reality of it when you're doing it. And it's like, oh, okay, this isn't what I thought it would be. Or, oh, okay, this is a part of it too. With consulting, a lot of it is this sales process. So before you sign the contract, there's this like back and forth and there's a lot of uncertainty. And I was just on this like emotional roller coaster the past few weeks. Like, oh, they're really excited. They want to sign. Oh, okay. It doesn't look like it's going to happen. I was like, oh, okay, no, they're serious. And then, so it's just like this up and down. And then just developing like this apathy almost. It's like I can't ride this roller coaster. Like I just can't care if people want to buy the product or not, or buy my services or not, or work together or not. And so I think that's been a part of it. And then I thought the sales process would be more streamlined than it is, but it's kind of like a two-sided thing. Like one, it's harder than I expected, but I also feel like I can develop systems that make it more streamlined and make it easy. So that's kind of what this whole valley of despair is like. You like have this certain expectation, you interact with reality, get feedback, and
it's a lot more messy than you think.
And either that feedback kills you, or it's information and you allow yourself to kind of like, okay, no, even though it's not what I expected, I can make these tweaks, I can make these changes, and then I can keep going forward. Like, so for me, I had this process where it was like, okay, discovery call, and then let's jump into like working on a project. And then talking to other people and seeing how they do it, I've realized that there's a lot of utility in doing a paid discovery. So before working on the project and after the discovery call, you have like this 2 to 3 week period where you have like, a specific process of talking to the client, learning about their business, learning about their product, learning about their technology landscape, their technology infrastructure, learning about their data, which is like all of what AI and data science is about, and kind of exploring that in a structured way. And at the end of that, coming with a set of requirements and deliverables for the actual project itself. And I think that helps tremendously. I can already see into the future that I implement this and I see some other problems with this process that I need to fix or optimize. And then it just brings me back to like, is consulting as aligned as I think it is, because if I'm spending all my time managing relationships with clients and trying to sell and trying to market, like how much time am I going to have to learn,
which is the number one.
Yeah.
Point,
and
value.
Ultimately, like I don't want to build a consultancy. So that's one thing that's in the back of my mind. It's like, if this is just a means to an end, like, does it really make sense to spend any time on it at all? Like, why not just jump to the thing that you want to do long term and then just figure out a way to make it work?
Even now.
And so that's kind of like part of the confusion. It's like
that's a huge part of Valley of Despair. Confusion beyond belief. And there's really not much you can do other than keep doing it and give it time. Like, and that's the struggle, because you have to be patient, knowing something's off, but you don't know exactly what. Be patient, knowing you're not good at something, but you feel like you could get better. Like, It's just this like back and forth. And one of the realities too, like of like the actual work or content creation or business is like that it's really boring a lot of times. And I think
boring is good in business.
Boring is good in business. And that's something like we're learning. That's another thing where it was just like, oh, it's not what I expect, but let me pivot my way of thinking. For me, this is really the first time where I've been creating content solo and creating the amount of content I'm making solo without anybody's help, without anything around me. And then also starting the real business work solo. Because when I was consulting last year, I really wasn't doing much. Like, I don't know what I was doing, but I felt like it was 10 to 20 hours a week, but I don't even know what the fuck I was creating from that. Like there was not a lot of output, but this is the first time where I'm having more output. So I'm doing a lot more work, I think. And to me, that is an indicator it's more aligned than the consulting. And I see that on the day to day, when I'm bored and it's gloomy outside and I have no one to talk to about this, and I don't have any, like, Shaheen's busy and I can't like bounce ideas off of anyone, and I'm just kind of struggling with a topic, or I'm having writer's block, or, you know, I'm not really feeling inspired. It's hard to produce and it's boring. Like I have to just sit here and be like, I'm bored and I don't know how to fix this. I don't know what to do, but I just have to sit here and do it anyway because I have no team to motivate me. I don't have any boss. Like, I need this due. Like, this is due.
There's no social
structure. And there's also, when you're at work and your boss is like, I need this due, and it's gloomy and you don't want to do it and you're feeling bored or whatever, it's still kind of like that social pressure. And then you're like, oh, I just need to turn this in and I don't need to worry about anything else and I can relax and have fun. In those moments where I feel the same thing, minus the team, minus the structure, minus the boss, it doesn't even feel good to be like, oh, I just need to turn this in and I can chill, or I just need to like do something and I can like watch TV, or not do it at all and watch TV. That would suck too. Like, both options suck. So what sucks less is to at least try and make this thing the best I can, even though I'm bored, even though I don't know what to do. Like, that's a reality I just didn't consider, that it's not exciting all the time. And that doesn't necessarily mean you shouldn't do it. It just means that it's probably actually better. That means that this is real, because if it's exciting all the time, you're writing off of like dopamine hits and like brain waves. You're not writing off of real stuff. Like,
because excitement requires a certain aspect of novelty. And while novelty is fun, it's not sustainable necessarily.
It's not.
Because sustainability requires predictability. You need to kind of be able to predict everything that's going to happen. And if you can predict everything that's going to happen, it's actually something that's very boring. But that's what allows you to build a robust business where you basically can predict everything that's going to happen.
Because you're doing the same thing. You're putting the inputs in on a routine. Like,
it's literally basis. A machine. It's a machine.
And I think that's a reality of it. And it's like, you have to make like this exciting content and this fun stuff, and you have to get yourself in the mood. Like, you have to, like, there's videos where I'm like, if I was watching this video, I want to be pumped up, and I have to be pumped up to deliver this message right now. And it's like, I just didn't consider that like a long time ago. Like, there's going to be a period where you don't have a team. There's going to be a period where you have to create all the content ideas. And let me tell you, another huge part of this like boring aspect is sometimes, and I would say another aspect of the solo thing is like, sometimes when you're like creating all of the ideas, you're like, what? I'm making all this up. Like, who? I have no, like, I can go on Google, but I have like no one to verify this with. That's a strange feeling if you're doing things. I'm sure you'll, like, as I go on, I'll get used to this, but it's strange because I'm younger and I feel like I've always been told to check with someone or do and now like that's me, and I'm saying all this content and like I'm filming 2 to 3 videos, like including the podcast, really like 2 to 3 videos sessions a week. And I'm talking so much, I'm thinking so much. I'm like, what am I even saying anymore? Like, it feels like it just gets jumbled up. And I'm like, literally these days, I have to just be like, wake up with a fresh brain and try again. I don't know what the fuck I said yesterday, but let me just try again. And like, hopefully it resonates with someone and they get the point. And like, sometimes I'll like bounce ideas off with Shaheen and he'll be like, oh, that's like, that doesn't make any sense. Or like, you'll fix things in like 10 times better than what it was. And I'm like, man, I just feel like I wasn't even awake to even write it in that way. I know exactly what you're talking about, but you know, it's just so many pieces of content that we're creating. It's so hard to be clear and fresh every single day.
And that really just sums up, I feel it really sums up this like valley of despair, or whatever you want to call it. What gives it the despair is the uncertainty. And the experimentation of it,
pivoting left
the
and right.
constant pivoting, the constant stream of new information, the negative feedback, and the learning. That is what makes it hard. That's what makes experimentation hard. That's what makes this period hard. And I feel there's a lot of value in just having someone like if we weren't together and we didn't, or you weren't into this stuff, like this would be so much harder. And if I wasn't talking to people like through TDE or just through social media that are doing similar things,
oh my God,
it would be so much harder. So it's like, just find people that you can bounce ideas off of, or you can just vent to, and they can vent to you, and you can kind of talk about your shared experience, because I feel like that's really important, because when you're experimenting and it's like this jumbled mess in your head,
so jumbled,
sometimes when you're forced to say it, like tell the story to someone in a coherent way, it helps give you clarity. It helps you realize what you need to remove and what you need to double down on.
Exactly. And even if you don't have friends or people around you, something I've been doing a lot more lately, because I've been in my hibernation building my business era. Like, I'm not trying to be like a move in silence person, but I really did need to like do that. Silence. I really like, I'm not announcing that every 5 minutes. I know I am right now, but I'm just,
we'll just cut this part out.
So anyway. But like it's been really helpful for me to just kind of be on my own and whatever. So having no one to really like bounce ideas off of, like I just find myself finding more and more entrepreneurs on YouTube who make content, and I'm just like, it'll be so random. I'm like, oh, they said what I was thinking. Okay, great. Like, I'm not crazy. Like, even just having that, and like hopefully that's what this podcast can be for people, for someone, is just that like, oh, I thought the same thing. At least I'm not like alone in this, and I like, 'cause there's someone else in the world who thinks this way, and is someone who's not like an idiot, like someone who I respect in some way, and you don't have to respect us, but even if I don't know, I just feel like having anyone validate your thoughts is just like, okay, like at least I'm not doing this alone and struggling alone. So but after this, there comes a time, this is what we're banking on. There's the slope of enlightenment. If you want, there's things start working, you can start scaling and building and whatever. So the product market fit, like things come up after this experimentation. But I do think the experimentation gives you the skills, because if you're not used to things that are boring, if you're not used to working when it's boring, if you're not used to learning skills on your own, if you're not used to kind of these like less than ideal working conditions, then what will you really have when you have the team, when you do have the resources to scale? How are you going to inspire people? How are you going to teach people what you did? Well,
also like the valley of despair, the experimentation, the learning period is a prerequisite, because if you already knew everything, you would just jump to the product market fit and start going. Like, a thought exercise that I have is like, if I'm struggling at something, like I'm struggling at a consulting business, I just think of someone that's way ahead of me. And they have been doing this for decades. And I'm like, would they be struggling with the things I'm struggling right now? It's like, no, they wouldn't, because they've been there. They've done that. It's just rinse and repeat for them. Everything's predictable. Everything's boring.
Because they've done this so many times. They get it. And they've seen different outcomes. And they've seen how they react to different outcomes. And they're like, it's kind of like if you saw a kid like tying their shoes and like really struggling with it. And you're not going to like be like, oh, they're so stupid. You're just going to like, you're going to be like, oh, I've been there. Like, I didn't know at some point, but now, and that for that child, tying their shoes might be like, I'll never get this. Like, I'll never get through this. But you're like, that's not true. Like, that's going to be an afterthought in like 30 minutes from now. Like, even, so like, it's a silly example, but you can apply it to so many things. There's points in my life where I was like, oh my God, I'm never going to have a relationship like this, or I'm never going to be able to create content. I'm never, like, some of the videos I make today, I'm like, I don't even know how to do that. And it's like, I've overcome that, and now I wouldn't even think to be stressed about that. It's just like a habit. It's an instinct now. And that's where this stage will teach you how to make those things that are problems into a habit. And I think the whole definition of a problem is really interesting to think about in this stage, to your point, because if something is a problem to you, like, that means that you haven't figured something else. Figure something
underdeveloped
skill. And I think, like, if you really think about this, there's certain things that someone can bring up to you. Just say you're really good at math and somebody brought to you a literal math problem. You'd be like, oh, easy. Like, you wouldn't define it as a problem because it's easy for you.
Right.
But if somebody brought something that you're not good at, like art or, whatever, and they told you to draw, you'd be like, I have a problem with art. I can't draw. I'm so bad at this, X, Y, Z. You would define it as a problem. And that's because you haven't figured something out yet.
Yeah.
Problem is subjective. So there's no like objective problem. Like I'm like objectively bad at this. Like this sucks. It's just a problem to you right now because of what the resources you have and your experience and your skill. And it's just like all of those things can be improved. Skill can be improved. Experience can be improved. All of these things. And then things no longer become problems. So like if you're in this kind of like despair phase and you're feeling like this is just my problem, it's usually because there's things that you're missing that make you define this situation as a problem. So thought that could be helpful. But one thing I think that is critically important in this phase is to hold on to this vision. Before we get to like how we cope and how we solve this kind of valley of despair problem, if you don't have a vision right now, if you have gone this far without having a vision, this is where it becomes critically important, because I think you can have a lot of feelings of like, oh, I'm bad at this. This sucks. Where's all this going? Blah, blah, blah. Like, am I ever going to get there? And I want to like take a moment to go in depth with like the vision and like what it means, especially in this period of, valley of despair, because you are seeing something that people don't see. And you're seeing something that you don't even like, in a way you don't even see it. Like if you don't hold on to this vision right now, like it just kind of disappears. It'll go away because you had the vision when you started and it was all fun and games because you're like, oh, I've never tried it before. There's so many things to try. And then as you're getting closer to this vision, you're like, I don't know if this is going to work out the way I think it is. If you let go of the vision because you're seeing things don't work out, like you will manifest this vision not working out because you're like letting go of the work that goes into it and you're letting go of the thing in general. And then it just doesn't exist because the vision you see is very specific. I don't see the vision you see. We don't like, even though we have similar visions, like it's still specific to how we see life. And I really believe everybody's like dream life, everybody's vision is very unique. And if we don't go after it, it literally just doesn't exist anymore. And I think that's what's kind of sad. Like you are the only one who can fulfill your vision and you're the only one who sees it the way you do. So that means you're the only one who can create it the way you want it to be created. And if that vision could inspire a generation, that vision could inspire your kids or even just one person. And it's like, that would just suck if that just didn't exist because you were like, I gave up on it. And it's like, it's no longer a thing. Like, and if you need something physical to think about, like think about all the companies that you use every day, Apple, like Uber, like whatever company, like the restaurants you go to, the ones that you love, like that's my favorite restaurant. This is my favorite clothing brand. Those were all visions at one point. And what if those people just said like, it's getting really hard. I guess it doesn't work. It doesn't exist. And it's like the innovative ones that like, how the fuck would that work? I mean, I'm sure we bring up Mr. Beast every fucking day, but it's just like these little things. And if people didn't see him doing it, how many less YouTubers would we have? Right. Like if people didn't see all of the musicians that exist and all the different genres and like how people dress differently and all the types of fashion, like how many less people in that field we have because they don't see it. They're like, oh, I don't know. And it's not that the person who's looking at your vision is going to do exactly what you're doing, but it inspires them to live out theirs. And so I just feel like this, even though I've been in this kind of like, oh, shit, like this is not going to work out. Like I am creating a company that is very like lifestyle aspirational based. It's not like a physical store. It's not like an only online store. It's kind of like this mix of things. I've never seen this. Like how does this make sense to anybody? Like I've never seen it before, but this is where I kind of like double down on my vision. I'm just like, no, but like what if someone else is like me and like I've never seen this before and like I have this like unique idea, but it's not exactly how other people do it, and they just like, I make this thing work. I push for it until it's a reality, and then it becomes a new standard or a new baseline for someone. Like that would be great because I wish I could see this thing. I wish I had this thing in my life. Like that's what would be amazing if I hold on to this and actually make it real. So
that makes me think of the data entrepreneurs, because really the whole genesis of it was I was looking for this community of people like me. They're in the data science, machine learning, AI field, but they want to pursue entrepreneurship.
Yeah.
And there were communities for each of those things, but there wasn't a community bringing both together.
Right.
And so I eventually gave up and just made it. Yeah. I mean, I'm still like mid flight with this thing. I don't know what it's going to become. It just started with like, I was looking for this thing and it didn't exist, so I made it.
Yeah.
But I don't know where it's going.
Yeah,
you know
same.
what I mean?
Like,
and,
same.
Yeah, so I don't know. I guess this is part of the value of despair.
This is the part of the
sitting with the uncertainty and not knowing where things are going to go.
Where they're going to go.
But I guess coming back to vision, like it reminds me of the Jeff Bezos quote, which is be stubborn about the vision, but flexible on the details. And I feel like my vision has always been tapping into people's full potential.
Yeah.
And I feel like entrepreneurship is a really good way to do that, because I feel like you tap into full potential when you're like completely immersed and obsessed with something.
Yeah.
You know, you're kind of pursuing a problem that is meaningful to you, you know, and you're basically giving all your energy and attention to solving that problem. And even though like there are some people like they find a job that is 100% aligned with what they want to do. I think we talked about this in episode 1 in the Remo pod.
Yeah.
But for most people, you're not going to be able to go find a job that is 100% aligned with your personal goals, values, mission, whatever like that is for you. Exactly. Yeah. So a lot of times you have to just create that job or create the company that allows you to pursue that mission.
Right.
And entrepreneurship that's like the definition of it, you know, creating your own job or creating your own company. So my vision has always been like, you know, unlocking people's full potential, because that's the world I want to live in. Even if it's like a very small percentage of the population, just kind of get a nice kick in their potential, like in the right direction. That's why I feel like we need more entrepreneurs. And, you know, that's still a huge problem. It's like, okay, unlocking people's full potential is such a huge problem. It doesn't even have any meaning. But if you say, okay, we need more entrepreneurs, that's still a massive problem that I can't really put a dent in. Okay, how about supporting entrepreneurs in data science and AI? It's like, okay, I feel like that's the right problem for me to pursue. Like, I feel like that is something that I can make progress on. Yeah. And then that's why I made the data entrepreneurs, and kind of reminding myself of like this bigger vision and bigger mission. It's just helpful in the, you know, in the valley of despair when nothing makes sense. It's like dark, it's cold, it's windy,
sweaty.
It's sweaty. And just reminding myself of that, it's like, okay, that's what this is all about. It's about seeing what you're capable of, just nudging other people too to explore what they're capable of.
One good rule of thumb could be like, even when you're in this like dark, scary period of entrepreneurship, it's just like, okay, sure, like consulting or content or like all these little pillars of your business that make up your business, like maybe I'm feeling uncertain, maybe I'm feeling confused about them individually or all together or whatever, but am I still sure on my vision? Like if the answer is yes, like you still want to see people get into entrepreneurship, you still want to see a world where people maximize their full potential, like if you still want to see that X vision and you're still like, God, that would be amazing, like that would be so cool, or like I can't die knowing that would never come true, like I think you still have more to explore. Like there's more to go, there's more to experiment on, because, and I think this will last probably your entire, you know, career doing this thing. But like if you still feel so sure, like if your vision is still a hell yes, then there's more to go. Like there's still more to figure out. And I think sometimes like that's why talking to people is really good, because you're just like, when you're talking about what you believe in, you're like, yeah, see, like this is why I do what I do. Like I know I still have you remind yourself of how much you care about this thing, and that is really helpful in the times where you get so much in the weeds, like of the operations of the business. Like I got to make this Instagram post, or I got to make this TikTok. And like, I've been kind of feeling like that this week. I'm like, I'm making all these pieces of content. I'm like, what am I even talking about anymore? Like, am I crazy for what I think, or do I sound too pushy? Do I sound like, I was just like nitpicking all the little aspects of the thing, when it's just like, but I still have this bigger vision. Like I still know the life that I want to have. Like I want to be able to travel. I want to be able to create products. I want to be able to talk to people and meet other people like me, and then show another little girl that like, yeah, you can have a life doing whatever you want. Like you can have
kids.
Oh yeah, I'm not gonna cuss to them. But like I want to show younger me that like, yeah, bitch, like I keep cussing to my younger self, but like
18-year-old
self. I want to show her that like everybody who thought you couldn't do this, have the kind of life where you get to do literally everything you want to do, like run around cafes and get paid and like travel to places and have fun with people, like literally just having fun as my job. I wanted to prove to people that I could do that, and other people doing this too. And I see people like low key doing their like hobbies or their interests, like things for no reason, and or doing things without having to have a reason first, and things will work. And I'm like, see, like I know this is true. And it's like, okay, I still have more work to do. I just got to figure it out. I got to keep going. Even though I don't know, you know?
Yeah. So for you, it sounds like just you believe this thing to be true.
So hard.
But it's almost like you don't have sufficient evidence to prove it, but you know it like in your bones. And so you're just trying to do it so you can show people like, here's the evidence. Like you thought I was crazy, but this is what I believe in. And then here are the pieces of evidence to back it up.
And the thing is like, I see other people kind of like living that life. Like I follow kind of like the same person over and over again. I'm sure we all do this, but like my feeds are just like the same, like different fonts of the same thing. So like I have one genre where it's like the European fashion girlies, and then I have another genre where it's kind of mixed. It's like European fashion girly, but they're an entrepreneur. Think about like Matilda Djerf, Negan Mercelehi, like they have a bigger company. Like those are kind of like my North Star girlies. And then I also follow like I would say like, what else?
The European fashion girlies, and then the European fashion girlies that
run a business. So like I feel like that. I know there's like little things like I like the creative people, I like the writers and authors and like, you know, the self-development people. I definitely say self-development world in general. And so like I feel like I'm just like, I want to be able to mix all of these together. Okay. I'm not necessarily trying to teach people an exact life to achieve. I'm just trying to teach them that if I can get to my exact life by using these certain principles or doing these certain activities, whatever life you want, you can also do the same thing. And I think that exists on some level. Like I kind of get my fix from like watching the Hormozis or watching Dan Coe and watching all the people I watch. But I don't know if there's been something dedicated to helping people get their dream, like dedicated to them dreaming, but like it's like they're having fun. I know there's people like there's like always a mastermind or a course on like how to make money or how to grow, but it's like not that stuff. I'm talking about like the internal process you're going through. Like, is there anything dedicated to people like, oh yeah, I want this structure. I want my companies and my resources to be so solid that when there's a younger person who looks at like, oh, they're finally free, they can do things in the world, and they're like looking for the next step, and they come across some product or resource I've made, they're like, oh, it's easy. Like I'm not crazy. Like I want it to be that simple, because there's things like that that's for me where I've come across somebody's resource and I'm like, oh, they just broke it down. It's so easy. I thought it was this huge, massive problem.
It would have been for you. It would probably taken months or years for you to go in
and learn
through the valley of despair and learn everything you need to learn. But then when someone just kind of makes it a commoditized thing, it's just like a video or a course or like even an article.
Even that, like this little stuff that makes it like, this idea is so much less scary than I thought it was. And that's what I want people to think when they think exactly what I want. Because I think anytime people think I want exactly this lifestyle, I want to do this exact thing, it's immediately passed off by them or other people around them. Immediately. Normalize dreaming. Normalize like doing exactly whatever you want to do. Like I never wanted. Anyway, I could go into.
You're just ranting.
Sorry, I can see this. This is why we should talk about it, because it's like, see, there's more work to be done. Yeah. So, but last thing, I just want to talk about this analogy that you gave, the waterfall analogy.
Oh, okay.
That really helped me see, like, yeah, my vision is fire. Like, I'm the master to all the secrets. So tell us, what's your waterfall analogy for visions?
I actually don't remember.
You don't?
No.
Okay, I remember it.
You remember? Okay,
Yeah.
you tell me and then maybe I'll remember.
You just interrupt me. But Shaheen gave me this analogy. He was just like all of us dreamers, we see a specific waterfall, like it's in our brain, like it's in our dreams. We're just like, oh, this waterfall is beautiful. There's the blue on this side, there's the pink on this side, like all these beautiful colors come in, the shine comes in at this angle, like we see it in our head. Yeah. Clearly, perfectly. And we're in the forest and we're seeing ponds, we're seeing little lakes, we're seeing little puddles and trees and everything. We're like, okay, there's signs of water, but you know, I'm not seeing exactly the waterfall that I see in my brain, but I know it has to be close. Like, look at all this water, there's evidence. Like I see the same kind of birds that I see you know, that fly around the waterfall. And it's just like, that's what it feels like to have this like dream vision of like your dream career, your dream life, or whatever, and people around you are just like, give up, just settle with this fucking river right here, like just drink out of this and use, like you don't need to run, like you're probably never gonna find this thing. And you know, you sound crazy, and like no one else has seen this waterfall, so they're just like, yeah, you can get this, or everything is like close, but it's not exact. And I love this analogy because that's my argument in life, is like, why can't I have exactly what I want? Like, why is that impossible? Did we try to get there? Like, I want this specific thing. And that's the vision. That waterfall is the vision. And a lot of times you're not going to be able to find it immediately or for a very long time, but that doesn't mean it doesn't exist. And then
sometimes you have to make it.
And like, I think that's what feels kind of like, even to me, I'm like, oh, I even kind of think this waterfall doesn't exist. But I also am like, why wouldn't I die trying to figure out if it does, you know?
Because what's the alternative?
Yeah. And it's like, why would you have this vision of the waterfall? How come you just can't get it out of your brain? Like, why? There must be a reason that you keep thinking about it, even though you've literally never seen it before. Why does it come to your brain? I think that's a sign. I don't know. So... period. Okay. How to cope, guys? How do we cope with the valley of despair?
I think this stuff helps. Like everything we've already been talking about, like reminding yourself of the vision, reminding yourself of like the realistic alternative. Yeah. You know, if you were to quit, what would that look like? You know what I mean? And then like, I feel like the mission needs to be something like is meaningful to you, that if you never solve that problem, it would be much worse than the valley of despair. It would be the worst despair because at least in the valley of despair, you're moving and you're making progress. But if you give up, like you're just perpetually in that valley of despair. It's like you're wandering around the forest. It's like dark, it's cold, it's whatever. And then you just say, I'm done, and you just like stop like you stop moving, you know what I mean?
And I that's a really good point. Like, I think, at least for me, and I think entrepreneurs who are who feel really passionate about their mission and their vision, it's like, it's almost worse to not even try than to go through the valley of despair. Like, if you can stomach the valley of despair, that feels better than the idea of regret of not doing it or never trying or, you know, whatever. I think the valley of despair, again, rite of passage, means to an end. Like, it will not be forever. It won't last. But living with the regret or always wondering what if, I feel like that, I don't know, I'm not 57 or like, you know, I haven't reached the last of my days, hopefully, but
it's not last.
No, I know, but like, I'm not seasoned into life to know, but
you haven't been there, done that.
But I do feel like that won't ever leave your mind. Like, what if I was capable of doing this? I just never actually tried. What if I could have seen, or in the worst, I feel like the worst feeling is to see some other bitch do exactly like what you thought possible. Literally, I would literally kill myself if I saw somebody like do exactly what I thought was impossible, and they're just fucking galloping through life. I'd be like, I should have
Right.
I'd be so pissed. Like I would be a Scrooge.
I feel like, okay, so that's good. Like there's two sides to the mission, because there's like the positive side, but then there's also this negative side. Like, you know what I mean? If you were never to do it, like that would hurt a lot.
Yes.
But also like if you were to do it, it would like, it's like, yes, like I would
feel so fulfilled.
Feel so good. So I think that's a helpful thing. So the mission is one way to cope. I think another way is talking about it, which is another point we touched on. Just kind of talking about what you're going through and what you're feeling. And then I would say like the last thing is just the fact that like realizing that it's necessary. Like if you're struggling, it means there's a sign of underdeveloped skill or the lack of some knowledge, you know? So I think that is helpful in a sense as well.
No, it is.
And then reminding yourself, like, if you don't have it, it's probably because you're missing something and you have something you need to learn.
Yeah. And like, think about it, like that thing that you feel like is so hard and stressful now, like, would you want to keep going? Would you want to keep scaling with that thing still being hard to you?
Yeah.
You know, that would like suck. Like if I'm so bad at like copywriting right now and I have no followers, like how awful would that be if I gain followers and it's just like I can't write? Like I just don't know how to get through a hard day. Yeah, I'm gonna lose them. So I think those are really good. Some like little practical habits that have helped me kind of cope with this on a day-to-day, because it is like a very daily, you feel it like daily process. Stopping a lot of things, and I've added some new habits. So a lot of things I've stopped: doom scrolling and comparing myself, because in this valley of despair, you're vulnerable, you're feeling like you suck at everything, you feel like nothing's gonna work out, and looking at people who have figured it out, looking at people who have seemingly what you think you need, or comparing what you're going through to what they're going through, and you don't have all the information. It's just unnecessary information,
and it's also a distraction a lot of times.
And it's a distraction because you have a problem that you need to be solving, whether that's even taking a break or whatever. Like that's a way of solving it, but looking at people and focusing on what they're doing is not solving that thing in any way, shape, or form, and it's a waste of time, and it makes you feel shitty. So it just ruins your chances of overcoming that problem. So just take it out. That's something that I feel like I'm trying to like decrease, if anything, because it's hard to like completely eliminate, but just decrease. And then I feel like in this valley of despair phase, it's good to like talk to people, but I feel like it's also sometimes it's just easier to get your mind off of it and not like overshare. Just like, vent to your trusted individuals who can help you get through it, but also don't keep, oh my god, I'm at this awful point in my life. Like it's not helpful. Again, it's just like distraction. You gotta move, like take the L and just keep going. Which kind of brings me to like, allow yourself to have bad days, allow yourself to have bad work. Like that's something as a perfectionist I struggle with. Like this is not good, like this sucks. Again, like the whole like sucking at everything, it's like this sucks, this is not good. Just work the full time that you allotted to work on that thing, produce the bad work, because you're gonna have days where things are not cute, your designs look hideous, your copywriting makes no sense, and then allow yourself to wake up fresh, come back to it tomorrow. And another huge point there is taking breaks, just taking the day off. Like stop trying to force past the resistance all the time. Like if the workday is done, it's done. It's tomorrow's problem, and you'll come with a fresher mind and brain. And like that has been a new habit I think it's really been helpful, even on a daily scale. Like I know we do this quarterly, but like even on a daily scale, just doing what I can, forgetting about it, and coming back tomorrow. I usually figure something out, and even if I don't figure it out, it just feels easier. It's better that way.
Just come at it refreshed,
because in this valley of despair, it's going to take a minute. Like if you don't have good coping habits or systems to get out of these negative emotions or just move past them for a little bit, you're gonna be going through more hell than is already the hell itself. Like just, you have to do things that make it easier. It's not that it's going to fix everything. You're going to have clarity overnight, but I mean, you might eventually, but it just makes doing this longer easier, because it's going to be a rough period. So you want every day to be less hard than it already is, if that makes sense. And then also just stopping the whole victim mindset thing. Like this is my thing. It only happens to me. I'm the only one who can't seem to figure it out. Like that just, again, it doesn't help you solve the problem that is creating the valley of despair.
Yeah, and it's like it's a double whammy because it doesn't help you solve the problem and it gives like a proxy for a solution.
Yeah.
It's kind of like the blame game.
It's a Band-Aid. It's a Band-Aid, and it, like, when you take it off, the scar is not healed.
Yeah.
It's just as fresh and open. Like,
it's because like you put a Band-Aid over it, but it's like you're playing with it at the same time.
So you're just like ruining it. It doesn't make any sense. And but it's something we all do. Like, I do this all the time, but I just have to catch myself. I'm like, oh, okay. Anytime I'm like, oh, everybody else, or like, oh, just me. Like, anytime I start thinking in that language, I'm like, okay, let myself think that. But reality check, it's probably not that deep. It probably isn't just you. It probably is just something you need to figure out. Like, just try to sober it up a little every time you start getting in that mindset, because it's natural. But at the same time, the reason you have the problem, again, is because you don't know something. The reason you're in this valley of despair is because there's a lot of things you're missing. So the point to get out of this, to even get out of this dark period, you have to be good at solving these problems. And if you're not doing things that help solve the problems, you're going to be in here longer. So it doesn't make sense to dwell and pretend you're the victim.
Just take the L, move on. And have a growth mindset. You know what I mean? Just remind yourself that you're learning. And
one thing Shaheen and I have been telling ourselves, because, you know, we're living off savings, we're losing money more than we're making it. And one thing is that comes up is money anxiety. Like, what are we going to do? We only have this amount of time to live. And I don't know if everyone's in this situation. I doubt it. But I think one thing we've told ourselves is, like, anytime you want to worry or sit and get scared, which is natural, put that energy into work. Like, solve the problem, get to work.
Turn the anxiety into action.
Turn the anxiety into action, because we've been worrying since last year, and arguably right now we are in a worse spot than the time, you know, we were worrying last. And
really we don't even have to worry. Like, right now,
that's
like,
the point.
There's no short term. In the short term, there's no need for money, because we're good for another 6 months. You know, so we don't need to really be worrying about money for another, like, really, like 4, 5, maybe even 6 months. We don't have to worry about money.
But the thing is, like, even just, I can see it, and I could see myself even looking at it like, 6 months, you don't have enough time. Like, you know, you can already start, like, having pre-anxiety about the anxiety that will come when you're on that last month, even though you're not there yet. Or just thinking like, oh, 6 months, I need to start preparing now for 6 months. And it's like, that's something that especially as entrepreneurs, you have to stop, because over preparing or over worrying,
it's usually just
wasted effort, because you never know what can happen later.
One email can change everything,
literally. And I learned that in freelance. Like, you could be just like one email away, you could be 1 month away from things working out, and then so there was a time period where I was on my, like, last $1,000, and I was in a delusional land of some sorts, because I was not that worried. I don't know why. And I just signed a lease, for like a $2,000 a month apartment. So I could have spent most of that last month, or even that entire 6-month period, worrying about what I'm going to do and just taking random jobs and wasting my time. But I put that energy into marketing freelance. I put that energy into applying for jobs and selling myself. And on that last month, I landed a full-time gig, but it was freelance still, that allowed me to, you know, pay the whole lease. Like, it was fine. Like, everything was fine. It actually, like, increased my income significantly. And that's when I started to get into, like, that 6-figure range. And it's like, if I had spent that time worrying, I probably wouldn't have landed that job, you know, that was more aligned than something I would have just picked up off the street. So it's like, sometimes over planning, over worrying, most times does nothing for you, because you're not allowing yourself to, like, think on your feet, figure it out, and you're distracting yourself from the work that could get you to where you want to get, you know?
Don't think, just do it.
Just move. And I think this is the last thing, is just taking breaks and, you know, taking more retreats and just doing things that, like, help get your mind off of it, because we are, like, working daily. We're thinking about this daily, and just letting your brain sit on ideas and, like, rest. It's really helpful. Even that's like I said, on a daily scale, even if it's within, like, hourly scale, like, go on a walk, stop working, take a break, like, keep your mind right, you know?
I usually will take some kind of break it'll typically happen. I do it like as needed.
Mm-hmm.
For every 45 minutes, every 90 minutes.
Yeah.
But I also have like scheduled breaks on my calendar. So
Mm-hmm.
like we have our morning walks. I have
Yeah.
like an afternoon meditation. I have like a gap in the middle of the day where I typically like will eat something.
Mm-hmm.
And a lot of, I'm sure a lot of people experience this, but it's like a lot of your best ideas come in like the shower thoughts. You know what I mean?
Literally.
They just kind of, they come when you're not actively doing the work.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. And it's actually like so important. Like people are like, oh yeah, like just take a break, or like people are like, oh, I don't need a break, I could just power through it. Like, no, you're actually missing out on so many ideas when you don't just stop and like let things simmer.
Yeah.
And I have to do, because I'm a very like, if I make a plan, I'm like, I gotta stick to it. Like I get crazy about like I have to achieve what I said I'm gonna do, but again, it's just awareness of thinking like, oh, I'm getting in that zone again. This is unproductive. This is actually not going to get me anywhere that I want to get. Take a break. Take a step back.
Being able to catch yourself when you're kind of going down that rabbit hole of unproductive work is a skill set. I mean, I'll just kind of say this last story. Like when I was in grad school, there was this project I was working on, and it became obvious that I needed to label a lot of data by hand. So like thousands of frames of images I needed to like give a label to it, and this would take hours of work to do, and I was like trying to figure out how to like avoid that and going back and forth, and finally I just gave up and said, okay, I'm just gonna do whatever, the 20 hours of work of just manually labeling this. And I was like, okay, well, before I do that, let me go get some water. So I went downstairs, got a cup of water, and then when I was drinking the water, I just had a realization of like how I can basically expedite this task significantly.
Yeah.
And it took me like 15 minutes to get the data set together. And so like that's the type of like step function innovation that can come when you're taking a break, when you're not doing the work. So that stuff is super important.
No, it's just like, because your brain is always working.
It's always working.
It's always working
and
on
it's a
something.
lot smarter than you think.
Yeah. And so even when you're just doing nothing or you're hanging out, like it's working on something. And the good thing about entrepreneurship is that you're giving it something productive, I think, to solve.
Well, you're allowing yourself to be fully immersed in the thing.
Totally.
Because if you're a part-time entrepreneur, you're working full-time, and then your business is on the side, there's like two things. So the shower thoughts could be about like your full-time job, or they could be about your business. When all you do is your business, like everything starts working.
And like now I'm just like, oh, the content can connect this, and the business, like, and now I'm just having these like full circle shower moments. And like before, my shower moments were thinking about drama and a potential scenario that could happen.
And I think that's another thing I've realized, like you have to be very thoughtful about what you give your attention to. So like that's why like not scrolling at all, but even like important. Don't like, I was just thinking about like some just silly drama, like I was just like okay, I'll just say like there were these like two like strongmen competitors, like Eddie Hall and Hafthor Bjornsson. They had like this beef, and I found myself thinking about it right before I went into the shower, and I was like, oh, I wonder whatever happened in that beef. And I was gonna go look it up, and I'm like, just stop thinking about this stuff. Like you're wasting your precious energy, like your precious attention on this. Think about, because I've been working on this like new blog, and I'm like, no, you need to think about that. That's what your mind needs to be working on right now. Not solving some drama between two people you've never met before. So like being able to like catching yourself, like when you're thinking about things that don't matter, you know, just like, okay, don't think about that. Think about things that actually matter, because your attention is the most valuable resource that you have. It's so valuable. And you have to be very thoughtful about it.
I mean, like take a break from the work, because you're already doing the work. Hopefully you're already doing the work. Take breaks in between, and then just monitor what your brain is, you know, giving its attention to. I wanted to add, I also like cleaning breaks. I think those are very helpful, because again, another thing that you're like getting something done, it's taking care of the house, clean mind. And then you also can have some of these ideas there, taking walks, like even just meditating, working in a different place, like going to coffee shops makes me so much more productive, like just doing things like that. So,
or like, one thing I like is not stacking dopamine. You know what I mean? Like if I'm eating, I'm not going to eat and watch a video. Like I used to do that a lot. Or like I'm not walking and listening to a podcast. I'm just walking. I'm not like taking a break and watching TV. Like I'll just sit on the couch.
Separate the
yeah. And because what you're doing is you're fully immersing, like you're taking up all your attention. If I'm eating and watching a YouTube video, that's taking up all my attention.
Yeah.
But if I just eat, I have leftover attention, and there might be that agitation, like, oh, I need to do something with this attention. I need to, I need to focus on something. Just that'll pass, or at least for me.
Yeah.
I allow it to pass, and then my mind starts working on the problems that matter to me.
Oh, that's good.
And so it's like, don't double stack, triple stack these like dopamine hits, or overload your attention. Like allow yourself to be bored. Like that's been a big thing for me this quarter. It's like allow yourself to be bored and tap in to the power of the subconscious, of the unconscious. Mind. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
It's just amazing. Like this is something I wrote a LinkedIn post about recently. Like we all have the most powerful tool ever known to man. Which is your mind. And then I love how David Goggins says it. He says the deadliest weapon known to man is the human brain. And so like you have this incredible, like you can call it whatever you want, technology, weapon, resource.
Yeah.
You just have to use it effectively.
Yeah. Well, it's good. So what you're going to use your mind to do now for your homework?
Uh-oh, there's homework?
I just thought of one.
Okay, what is it?
Instead of like jumping into like taking action, which is my favorite thing to do, I feel like just observing your mind. I think that's really important, because that's where it starts. If you don't know what's happening in your brain, you can't stop this like pattern of destruction, like
just negative emotions,
thoughts. Like you can't make space between them. You can't observe them. It's just too hard if you don't know what's happening in there. So like in this process of as you're in this valley of despair, just be aware of what's happening in your mind. Just note these patterns. Like in meditation, they call it noting. It's like, I don't need to do anything about it necessarily. Like, don't give yourself that much responsibility yet. Just note that it's happening. Just note that you're feeling like shit. Just note that you're feeling self-doubt. Just note that you kind of feel like an imposter. You don't know what you're talking about. Just notice it. And for the activator in me, it's like, well, then what do you do with it? Like what's next? But it's like, trust me, if you keep noticing at a particular time, doing a particular activity, you keep feeling a particular way, you're gonna naturally solve that problem. And I think that's what happened. Like I had to, when I was consistent with my work every day, no matter how I felt or whatever, I would just notice there's particular times I feel like shit. There's particular moments where things are not working for me. And it's the same thing with problem solving. Just note that every time you do this particular thing, it doesn't work. It's like the same thing, the same activity in your mind. Just noticing and being aware of what's happening like in this process. And just like, you can journal it down, but you can even just like mentally take a note of it. Like, okay, that's happening and it's temporary, or I notice this lasts for only this amount of time, or I notice like I have a problem when it comes to this activity, when I'm in this place, just start thinking about like what's observing yourself.
I really like that, because you're talking about it more broadly as a problem, but if you're specifically talking about negative emotions, I think people have this misconception about negative emotions. They feel like if they acknowledge them, it'll make it worse. But it's actually the exact opposite. If you feel some negative emotion and you just say, I'm feeling like this, or you just put a label on it, it actually diminishes that emotion. And there's actually like, I haven't read the studies, but I've heard like through various sources that when people label the negative emotions, it actually turns them down in the mind.
Label it how? Because I've also heard that you don't necessarily need to label it. You just need to acknowledge like something's happening.
It's the same thing.
Okay.
It's just kind of identifying it. So if one person I hear talk about this a lot is Chris Voss, who's a negotiator, and like if someone is like really frustrated, just saying something like, it seems like this is something that's really frustrated you for a while.
Right.
Like that just gives people a relief. They're like,
that's it. Yeah.
And you can do that to yourself.
Yeah, exactly.
You can do that with yourself.
I love that. I think that is just like so important. Like even with yourself, like okay, I like to call my like activator mode when I keep wanting to do things and I don't want to take a break. I'm like, oh, you're in checklist mode. That's the mode you're in.
Mm-hmm.
And it's a mode where I feel like I just want to get everything done. I want to check everything off, but I know I've identified and observed it's a trap. It never turns out to be productive for me. And this is like years of me noticing this, and it's still hard to get out of it, but I'm so much better at being like, oh, you're in this zone now. So I can expect that in an hour, I'm going to be crashing. I can expect that anyone who comes up to me in this time,
learn to predict the future.
It's going to get a different version of me. Like you learn to predict the future. And now when I'm bored, which used to be like, oh, I'm so bored. I got to fix this. Like, I don't know what to do. Like, I'm not enjoying my work. Maybe I should just stop. Like, instead of going down that rabbit hole, it's like, oh, you're just bored. You've been bored before. You get through it. Usually when you go to a coffee shop and you just work for an hour, you forget that you're bored and you just get to work. And it's like just doing these things routinely and just noticing simultaneously what's going on in my mind has helped me predict the pattern. And the predictability, like we said, is what makes this process so much easier. You're going to be in this for a while. You're not going to have everything figured out, but this can be on a micro level. There's like specific tasks where it's unpredictable and it's scary. There's certain like emotions or time periods where things are scary. But if I just take that level of thinking, like I'm observing this is happening, I've seen this happen before, I am going to take a break because I know when I get like this, I need to take a break. Like you just start putting together routines for each type of problem. And then before you know it, it's your valley of despair is a lot more manageable. And you probably made it out on the other side because you're making it more predictable by observing what's happening and actually fixing it. Like, so it's just, I think that's makes this a lot easier. You're always going to have it. It's always going to be there, but you can use techniques to get through it. And I think this will be true for most of your entrepreneur career. Like even just watching people who are ahead of me, like they still have new levels of this.
It never ends.
So you might as well learn it now when you need it, because you're going to need it probably in the next few years, even if you get through it. So, okay. Thank you guys so much for watching, and we wish you the best in your valley of despair. Just know that we're despairing with you.
We're here.
We're here for you. And thank you. Just thank you for being here and supporting our dream and helping us do what we do. And for the people commenting and liking and subscribing and anything like that helps us a ton in our valley of despair, just like feel less crazy.
But the best way you can support this podcast is by pursuing this mission of getting paid to live in your own life. Yeah, because then I'm going to use it as evidence. I'll be like, see, homegirl did it. You're going to be giving a TED talk and be like, homegirl 1. Homegirl 1, homeboy 3. They all did it. And look where they are now. So, let's keep it going. So, Beautiful. Bye.